The shadows whispered in unison, as though they had rehearsed my arrival. Some mirrors don't just reflect, they remember. The air shifted, not with breeze, but with awareness. Some doors aren't built to be opened, they're built to wait. The silence bent around me like a question I couldn't answer. Some footsteps grow heavier even when no one is there. The flicker of the light revealed a face I didn't bring with me. Some echoes follow, not from sound but from memory. The shadows trembled as though they were breathing. Some rooms watch more than they welcome. The silence grew teeth, sharp and deliberate. Some doors open from the inside when you're still outside. The reflection tilted its head when I hadn't moved. Some whispers know your name before you speak it. The floor groaned like it wanted me to stop. Some shadows lean closer when you try to look away. The air pressed down like invisible hands. Some rooms don't keep secrets, they keep you. The light flickered in patterns I couldn't ignore. Some whispers echo longer than your heartbeat. The shadows didn't stretch, they reached. Some doors lead not forward, but backward. The silence hummed like a song I didn't know. Some mirrors hold onto your reflection after you leave. The air thickened, heavy with intent. Some footsteps belonged to those who never left. The walls pulsed like veins beneath the surface. Some whispers are carried in from places you've never been. The darkness grew warmer, not colder. Some shadows don't wait for light to form them. The silence trembled like it wanted to speak. Some doors opened to places that don't exist. The reflection's eyes moved before mine did. Some whispers followed me out of the room. The air carried the weight of something unspoken. Some shadows don't fall, they rise. The floor shifted like it was alive. Some echoes arrived before the sound. The silence pulsed like it had a heartbeat. Some rooms remember more than people ever could. The light flickered in rhythm, like communication. Some whispers only begin once you stop listening. The shadows curved around me like arms. Some doors remain open in your mind even after you leave. The silence thickened until it felt solid. Some reflections linger after you walk away. The air carried a chill that didn't belong to the weather. Some footsteps don't follow, they circle. The darkness seemed to lean closer every time I blinked. Some rooms don't wait to be entered. They come to you. The walls groaned as if tired of holding secrets. Some shadows know the weight of your steps. The silence pressed into me like a hand. Some whispers speak in voices that sound like yours. The light revealed shapes the room didn't contain. Some doors closed slowly as if savoring the moment. The reflection's lips moved without mine. Some whispers laughed in the spaces between words. The air grew sharp, cutting into each breath. Some shadows stretched where no light existed. The silence dragged out longer than it should. Some rooms hold onto fear like furniture. The floor moaned as though it resented me. Some footsteps stopped when I did, and some didn't. The shadows pooled like liquid at my feet. Some doors looked newer than the walls around them. The silence hissed softly, almost like speech. Some mirrors showed more than just me. The air rippled, though nothing had moved. Some whispers grew louder when I covered my ears. The darkness felt crowded, though I was alone. Some rooms smelled like memories. The floor quivered as if alive. Some shadows carried weight when they brushed against me. The silence returned my breath with delay. Some doors pulsed as if alive. The reflection leaned closer when I didn't. Some whispers called me by names I'd forgotten. The air grew thin, resisting my lungs. Some shadows moved faster when I stood still. The silence bent and broke into patterns. Some rooms swallowed sound entirely. The floor shifted like it resented my weight. Some footsteps overlapped mine in perfect rhythm. The darkness lingered even when I turned on the light. Some doors disappeared after I turned away. The whispers blended until they formed sentences. Some shadows lingered after the light returned. The air trembled, humming low. Some mirrors didn't stop showing me when I left. The silence bent into shapes I almost recognized. Some rooms tilted as though shifting reality. The floor thumped like a heartbeat. Some whispers felt warm against my ear. The darkness curled like smoke. Some doors revealed places I had dreamed of. The air thickened with unseen weight. Some shadows mimicked me with delay. The silence broke, then reassembled itself. Some reflections smiled when I didn't. The whispers asked questions I didn't want to answer. Some shadows grew teeth in the dim. The floor stretched longer than it should. Some doors opened before I touched them. The air carried scents I couldn't place. Some rooms echoed with voices I'd never heard. The silence was so loud it roared. Some mirrors blurred when I blinked. The whispers spoke in unison. Some shadows flickered independently of light. The darkness shifted, pulling closer. Some doors glowed faintly at the edges. The air pressed into my ears like pressure. Some rooms tilted as though underwater. The silence cracked like glass. Some footsteps echoed without weight. The shadows moved before I did. Some whispers repeated my thoughts. The air froze, holding me still. Some mirrors showed another time. The floor groaned as though resisting. Some shadows held their shape too long. The silence vibrated softly. Some doors breathed slowly. The reflection lingered when I left. Some whispers begged to be believed. The air pulsed like a heartbeat. Some rooms sighed when I entered. The darkness folded like fabric. Some footsteps doubled back on themselves. The silence pressed into my chest. Some shadows pulsed like veins. The air bent around unseen forms. Some doors clicked though no one touched them. The reflection looked older than me. Some whispers laughed softly. The shadows flickered like flames. Some rooms tilted slightly off balance. The silence recoiled when I spoke. Some mirrors cracked without shattering. The air hummed with static. Some footsteps whispered in rhythm. The darkness formed shapes familiar yet wrong. Some doors swelled like breathing. The silence waited too long. Some shadows slipped beneath the floor. The whispers carried sorrow. Some reflections refused to leave. The air grew brittle, sharp. Some rooms remembered me too well. The past doesn't stay buried. It lingers in the corners, waiting for the right silence to return. Some rooms are not entered with footsteps, but with memories too heavy to leave outside. The shadows know more of you than the mirror ever could. There's a certain kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for yours. Sometimes it's not the darkness that scares you, but the way it seems to recognize you. Every corner holds a story, and some of them were never meant to be told. The spaces between your heartbeats are where the things unseen linger. What we call fear is often just recognition of what we've already met before. Some nights don't just pass, they stay etched into your skin forever. The weight of silence is heavier than any scream. When the wind stops, you realize it wasn't the trees that were whispering. Time doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it folds, trapping you between moments. The darkest rooms are not the ones without light, but the ones without escape. Some places don't exist on maps because they exist inside your nightmares. You don't always walk into a room. Sometimes the room walks into you. The most frightening thing about the unknown is how familiar it feels. Sometimes the air grows cold, not because of temperature, but because of memory. You never hear the first footstep of what follows you. Fear doesn't live in monsters. It lives in the spaces we refuse to name. Not every shadow is cast by something alive. Some doors you open willingly. Others open when you're not looking. The mirror doesn't always reflect what stands before it. The silence between whispers is where the real truths hide. Fear is not the sound of footsteps, but the absence of your own. Sometimes the walls have ears and sometimes they have voices. What if the things you dreamed about weren't dreams at all, but invitations? There's no such thing as empty space. It's only unseen eyes waiting. The closer you listen, the more you realize it was never the house that creaked. Some fears grow with you, becoming taller, louder, harder to ignore. The scariest stories are the ones we tell ourselves in silence. What lives in the shadows is not as frightening as what hides in your reflection. Sometimes the darkness doesn't follow you, it waits for you to come back. The ground remembers every step, even the ones you wish to erase. Some echoes don't fade, they chase. It's not the closed door that scares me, but the open one I never touched. The moment you stop running is the moment you realize you weren't the one being chased. Darkness doesn't hide things. It reveals them differently. Some places breathe, and you don't realize it until you exhale with them. What you fear most isn't what's waiting, it's what's already here. The silence after a scream is the loudest thing you'll ever hear. Sometimes the house doesn't wait for nightfall to reveal itself. The scariest monsters don't growl, they whisper. Every shadow has a memory, and sometimes they're not yours. The light doesn't always save you. Sometimes it exposes what was hidden. Not every knock on the door comes from outside. The line between nightmare and memory is thinner than sleep. Sometimes the floor creaks in places you never stepped. The eyes you feel on you aren't always your imagination. Fear doesn't strike, it seeps. Some voices don't need mouths to speak. The reflection didn't blink when I did. The air shifted, and I knew I was no longer the only one breathing. Some footsteps sound like yours, but aren't. What you can't see in the dark is often looking back. Even silence leaves fingerprints. Sometimes the most familiar places feel suddenly unfamiliar, like they've been rearranged in your absence. The door closed, but I never touched it. The longer you stare into the shadows, the more they stare back. Fear doesn't live outside. It grows where you hide it. Some memories don't belong to you, but they haunt you anyway. The whisper said my name, but it wasn't my voice. Sometimes you don't walk into the dark walks into you. The air smelled of something burning, though nothing was lit. What followed me home wasn't behind me, it was already inside. The silence was too perfect, like it was staged. Some mirrors don't reflect, they reveal. The longer I stayed, the more I realized I wasn't the guest, I was the offering. The shadows bent in ways the light couldn't explain. Some knocks never come from the outside. Fear is not the monster, it's the invitation it brings. The window showed a view that wasn't there before. The ground didn't just hold me, it remembered me. Some whispers don't fade when you wake. The silence didn't comfort, it warned. The darkness was patient, far more than I could ever be. Some places don't trap you, they welcome you. The air grew heavier, as though it wasn't meant for me. Even the shadows seemed to breathe in unison. The footsteps behind me didn't stop when I did. Some doors lead nowhere, and nowhere is worse than somewhere. The flicker of the light wasn't random, it was deliberate. The walls pulsed like they had a heartbeat of their own. Fear doesn't shout, it whispers again and again. The silence waited until I spoke before answering. Some darkness feels alive because it is. The reflection smiled when I didn't. The longer I stayed, the more I realized I wasn't a stranger, I was expected. The shadow moved, but I hadn't. Some footsteps echo longer than they should. Fear doesn't chase, it waits. The whispers weren't coming from the hall, they were coming from me. The walls leaned closer the more I listened. Some rooms don't exist until you find them. The air was thick with something unsaid. Even silence has a rhythm, and this one was off. The flicker of the candle revealed more than the flame. Some doors don't lock because they were never meant to. Fear crawled, slow and deliberate, into every corner of my thoughts. The house wasn't empty, it was waiting. The shadows twisted into shapes I recognized. Some whispers repeat until you answer. The silence shifted like it had weight. Fear seeped into the cracks of the walls. The reflection didn't wait for me to move first. Some rooms breathe only when you enter. The floor groaned as though it knew my name. The shadows didn't follow, they led. Some echoes don't come from sound, but from memory. The house exhaled when I stepped inside. Fear wasn't outside, it was already in me. The silence was too intentional, like a trap. The shadows were longer than they should be. Some places remember you more than you remember them. The door opened slowly, though no one touched it. The whispers grew, louder the quieter I became. Fear doesn't need proof. It grows from doubt. The room was colder than the air outside. Some shadows carried shapes I had seen before. The silence felt rehearsed. The ground shifted slightly beneath me, like it had breathed. Some doors open when you stop looking. The mirror showed something standing behind me. The air grew sharp, cutting into each breath. Some whispers weren't in my ears, but in my bones. The house didn't just stand, it waited. The darkness pressed closer, curious. Fear curled itself gently around my ankles. Some shadows stretched in directions no light could explain. The silence bent around me like it had shape. The door creaked softly, not with age, but with intention. Some footsteps weren't behind or ahead, they circled. The air hummed like a presence, unspoken.